How can such a small space like a powder room have such a big impact on a home's worth, practicality, and image? It's the one space that almost everyone must visit. Coming up, discover why its position in the floor plan is crucial, how keeping it small is best, what features matter most, what windows can do, and why it should make a lasting impression. Today, what I've put together are 4 different houses I've designed, and we're going to look at the powder rooms in each one of them. The first one is a smaller house, about 1,600 square feet. Then we go up to a 2,000 square foot house, and then the other two are 2,800 square feet about. And you'll see that it's not necessarily the size of the house that matters the most, but it's kind of the size of the powder room and where it can fit into the plan that is most important. So first, let's take a look at the Corona model that we have here, and we will go to open the plan. And I do want to mention that this is not about decorating. There's a lot of videos on YouTube about decorating powder rooms, and they're great. But this is more about the layout in a new house that you're coming up with, where to put the powder room, what is most important to have in it. Does it have a window? Does it have a wall that faces the outside so that you can do that? Those sorts of things are what we're going to look at today. So in the first plan here, this 1,600 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath house with a 2-car garage, we've managed to make a 5 foot by 5 foot, that's 60 inches by 60 inches, powder room to make this powder room work. So you can see that the features in here are pretty basic, pretty simple. What's important to keep in mind are some of the dimensions that you have to work with when you have spaces like this. There is, in most cases, it depends on the codes that you're under, there is a 30-inch minimum width for the toilet space. So we have to make sure that that is made clear and kept that way with no less. And what we're showing here is that circumstance where there's a 30-inch width for the toilet. And then that leaves over, because it's 5 feet, that leaves us a 30-inch wide vanity space. And then also there has to be a clearance in front of the toilet. Now I'm showing an elongated toilet. The option to the elongated toilet is a shorter one, so you have a little more space in front of it. But nevertheless, you need 24 inches of clear space in front of that toilet. With a 5-foot room and the rough size of a elongated toilet, you should have plenty of room. It's going to be less than 30 inches for sure, so you will have that at least 24 inches in front of it. So there's that dimension, and then also take note that the vanity top is a standard 21 inches deep. That's pretty much what you get. Off-the-shelf cabinets for a bathroom will be 21 inches deep, and that's why we make it that way. It can be a little bit deeper, not really necessary. It can be a little shallower if you're really tight on space, but 21 inches is a nice, standard, comfortable dimension to use for a sink. And then also we have a 28-inch by 80-inch door going into this space. It's not a real wide door. You could make it slightly wider. This is not set up for accessibility, so that you don't have the ability to make a room this small accessible. It's basically a standardized small powder room, and you can't really go any smaller than this and make it work that well. There's another configuration you can do where it's a long room, and I can show you that in a sample here of a floor plan for that. And you'll see how that works out. But that's a completely different arrangement. What we've got here is a square room. The other thing about this room, it's on the interior of the house. And because of that, I prefer to have some sort of natural light in all rooms, including bathrooms and laundry rooms. So whenever we can't get that in this case, our powder room is located in the middle of the plan. So what I've done here is I've shown a skylight. Now there's different types of skylight, some more expensive, some less expensive. This would be a more expensive version that I'm showing here. It's roughly a 2 foot by 2 foot skylight that would have a light well that makes a shaft for the light to come down into. It's kind of nice to have something like that in a small room, because it makes the room just feel a little bit larger with the natural light in it. And I think that that's always important. If you can't get it on the outside wall, if you can't get your powder room on the outside wall, this is a good option for that purpose. Coming back out to where this powder room is located in this plan, we have this entry gallery hall of this house You'll see this type of layout. It's very common right now, especially in the Southwest, where you enter a long hallway. In this case, it's 4 feet wide, so it's not too narrow. It is a version that some people don't prefer, but I do think that it can work out well, and I've seen plenty of plans where you have this entry door kind of in the center of the front facade, and then you enter and you're in a long space. If you make the space interesting, it can be very nice. You can also put lots of pictures and paintings and small pieces of furniture in here to make that space work well too. But I digress. So one thing I want to point out is where this powder room is located. If we go down the hallway and into the living room, you can see the living room kitchen is at the back of the house, and our powder room is down there by the 2 secondary bedrooms. And what that does is it gets the powder room away from the public areas of the living and dining space, so that if somebody needs to go down the hall and use that restroom, that bathroom, they're kind of away. It gives them some privacy and just makes that a little bit more comfortable for them. So this is a good example of a small powder room. And the 5 foot by 5 foot works nicely because in this case, we're backing it up to another bathroom where we have the standardized 5 foot bathtub. And because that aligns nicely, we've aligned our plumbing in a 2 by 6 frame wall that you see here on the lower part of the powder room and the bath number 2 behind the toilets. And that is also helpful in the long run because if you can kind of locate your plumbing kind of all together, it just makes it that much less piping and sizing that you have to do. And the 2 by 6 wall is so that you can fit that toilet vent stack into the wall. So let's come out of this plan and let's go take a look at another house here. The next house I want to look at is the Brentwood model. And in this one, it's about a 2,000 square foot house. Again, all of these that I'm showing you today are contemporary, mid-century modern feeling houses. Now, on looking into this plan here, there's several interesting things going on with this. At least I think they're interesting. But as we zoom in here, you can see that our powder room is located there toward the lower left in the plan, and it's off the foyer. And then it's on the living area end of the house. The bedrooms and bathroom and primary suite are all on the other side of the house. So this keeps this powder room more in the public areas of the house, but it also tucks it away from the living room by being off the foyer. And then the way we have set this up is that because this room is slightly narrow, it's 4'9" wide, but it's 5'8" long, which gives us a little bit more space in that direction. But with a 4'9" direction the other way and our 21-inch deep countertop for the sink, we have 3 feet left over for the toilet to fit into. And that 3 feet is more than enough to fit that toilet in there. And that makes that kind of a nice space that works out for this. The other thing I want to point out on what I've done here, and I've done this for clients and it actually works really well. Because this toilet is kind of right off the foyer and you walk by it and you kind of look directly into it, what I've done is create a door that's 28 inches wide and 80 inches tall that has a glass panel in it, a frosted glass panel. And what that does is if someone is using it, they can go in there, and because we're on the interior portion of the house, we're not where we can put a window in it, they close that door, and this large sliding glass door that faces the courtyard lets the daylight come in and pass through that glass door that we have opening into that powder room. Now, this is something that's going to cost a little bit more, but in a house like this, this works very nicely. And I think that that is one option that you have when you don't have a place to put a window. That's one way you can do that. The other thing here to point out is, of course, our 21-inch deep countertop that we have for our sink. And also, let's take a look from ground view here, and we have our glass door that goes in off of a courtyard entry space that makes this foyer. And then we'll go in a wide angle and get in closer to this room, and you can see you need to have a towel rack or a towel ring, in the bathroom for a hand towel after people wash their hands. And in this case, I'm showing it on the far right-hand wall there that you see. And then we have down here toward the other side, we have a tissue holder for the toilet paper for this bathroom. There are certain measurements that you need for those finishes and fixtures, which I won't go over in this video. We're going to primarily stay on the dimensions that you need to make a powder room work and work well, and where you position it in the house. Another thing here that you want to think about in powder rooms is the lighting. I'm not showing any great detail here, but the most important thing is you don't want the lighting in your powder room to be too harsh. It needs to be something that flatters people, that gives them sort of a broad illumination, but also makes sure that it focuses on around their face. And that helps people see better. And if they're in there and they want to make sure that they look okay and their hair is right, they can go and look in the mirror and the lighting helps them see. It's kind of an important thing in a powder room to think about. And also notice that because I've placed this toilet here next to this countertop, we don't have a cabinet that goes to the floor because the cabinet wouldn't work. We wouldn't be able to open a door or a drawer in that case. However, what I've done here is leave an open shelf. Now that makes a perfect spot to stash the extra toilet paper that you want to have in there. And then on the left-hand side, this part right here can be sort of an invisible drawer that you can store more soap and extra towels in for your guests. Okay, now that we've taken a closer look at some of the features in that powder room, I'm going to go out and show you where we are. The living room, dining room is one long, big room in this house, and then our kitchen is tucked into the right-hand side there that you can see in the background on the right. And you'll see on the left, you have a view into the courtyard. That powder room is tucked away off the foyer, kind of out of the way and sort of in a secret spot where people can go there. And in this case, they will feel more private using a powder room that is located in that fashion. So I think that's also something just really keep in mind where you want to position a powder room. It needs to have a little bit of a secret feeling to it. And it also makes it that much more intimate. And it's a small room and you want it to feel intimate. You want people to feel safe and secure in a spot like that. So going back and taking a look at the overall plan here, we can see that it fits nicely into this layout. I really think that that's a good way to do this. You can see we have the primary suite has a large bathroom to it. It's all private. And then we have another bathroom number 2 there on the right. Just so you know, if a guest had to use that bathroom, they wouldn't have to go through a bedroom, but they would have to go by the bedrooms to get to it. So that's the importance of the powder room, is to have a place where people can go that feels personal to them. It's not in the rest of the house. And it's a space that you can keep neat and tidy and make really nice. It's a small space. If you make it small, you can afford to do some really nice finishes and fixtures in there. And again, this is not about decorating as much as it is about the dimensions that you want to create for a powder room in a new house design. All right, let's go back out to our Brentwood model here, get out of the blue, and then let's take a look at our next house here, which is my Ventura model. And we'll open the plan up for this one. Go here, we've got a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-car garage house. Primary suite is on the left-hand side corner, sequestered from the bedrooms on the right-hand side. And off of our large foyer that we enter into on this house, we have a closet for coats, but we have also a powder room tucked in there behind the coat closet and off of the foyer, which makes this very private. And here we've managed to have this powder room have an exterior wall exposure. So we've placed a window above the toilet here. Similar to the plan I just showed you, I've arranged it so that we have a countertop that goes long ways into the room, and then the toilet has space there to go under the window. There's plenty of width for that. And again, it's a floating countertop, so there's no cabinet underneath it in this case that I've shown here. Of course, you could do this many different ways, so don't worry about that too much. But 21 inches deep. Let's go back here just a second. The room is 62 inches by 60 inches in dimension, and then it has a 28-inch by 80-inch door on it. Let's go down here off of our foyer and just get a better look at what this is like in real perspective. We're going to widen the angle and go in, and we take a look here. We've got the sink, the faucet, the mirror, the light fixture, the switches on the left. We've got a plug on the right. Always want to have a plug near a vanity. And then as we go around, we can see that we have made this a floating vanity. There's no extra storage in here. Probably what you would want to do is figure out a way to have some storage in this space. So you could do that in a multitude of ways. You could have a medicine cabinet type of arrangement. You could have a cabinet to the right-hand side of the sink. Instead of the mirror going all the way across, you could have, similar to what it was in the other plan that I showed you, you could have something underneath the countertop to give you a space for storage. But going and turning around, we see that here we are tucked in a corner away from the main part of the house. You can kind of see the living room there in the distance, but we have our tissue holder, and there's not a lot that you have in a powder room, but these few features are what's important. Again, the lighting does matter, and that is kind of another subject to itself that I'll leave for later, but on exactly how to do it. But overall, we're talking about our dimensions here, and this is how this particular plan does work with this roughly slightly larger than 5 foot by 5 foot powder room. Again, if you can keep them pretty small, that's all you need to do. In a moment, we're going to take a look at another house, and you'll see a larger one. But in the case of most houses, this kind of arrangement is fine for this type of house. We're about 2,600 square feet here. So in the case of this one, it's similar to the previous model where we have bath number 2, which can be easily accessed off of the main living areas. In this case, it's right off of the main living area. So if you didn't have the powder room, that could serve as the spare bathroom or for your guests. But goes back to, it's nice, it's really nice to have, even in smaller houses, to have that powder room that your guests can use and go into and feel private. And they're not going into your personal spaces of the house, and they're not going into the children's bathroom, which, you know, can often be very messy and lots of towels and toothpaste everywhere. So having that little jewel box of a powder room at the front of the house tucked away can be a very nice experience for someone. Now let's go to our last example here and take a look at this oceanside model. And this is a large 4-bedroom, 4.5 bathroom house. We've got roughly 2,800 square feet. It's a pretty sort of luxurious arrangement, lots of space, lots of elbow room. And as we come in here, what we've done is made a bit of a more extravagant powder room. You'll see it's an L shape. And in the large part of the L, the space is 64 inches wide and 67 inches in the other direction. And then we have another 33-inch by 39-inch space where the toilet is fitting into. And what this does is it tucks that toilet kind of way back in the corner there off of the hallway that we're using to access this powder room. And it gives us a nice long counter. When we open the door and go into this room, we can access that entire counter without a toilet being in the way, like in the other two examples. And that makes that much more elegant and nicer to use. Also, you'll see we've placed this one on an exterior wall, and we've used a fairly large window in this case to make this powder room work. And that window might be a little bit too big. You could do that in different ways. You could try to make it a little bit smaller. You could put in a series of small windows instead. But nevertheless, that gets you the daylight that you want to have in there. And you can always put a blind over a large window anyway. And that can be kind of nice just to have that extra illumination in there. And especially during the day, if somebody's looking in the mirror and you have natural illumination, that really helps with that. But in the evening, the blind would need to be closed and the lighting would be important, as I've mentioned before. So in this case, I'm showing 2 sconces on either side of our mirror for some lighting on that vanity space. Going in deeper, again, I don't show it, but the vanity top is 21 inches deep, In this case, we have a 30-inch by 80-inch doorway to get into this room. I've used a slightly wider doorway. If you have the space for that, it can be a good idea to have just a little bit of extra, like I said a moment ago, elbow room to get in there. And that makes it just feel that much more spacious and elegant and a little bit nicer. And then let's turn around here. I want to show you how this powder room is situated. See, when you go in this space, when you look out that window, you see the garage that goes out the front of the house. We turn around as you enter that space. This is what it looks like. And then if we go back out into our hallway, our entry hall is there. This hallway that we're in right now is off the kitchen and then leads down to the master bedroom, primary bedroom suite. And then there's another hallway that goes down to the garage. So this space is high circulation. It's meant to be the circulation space for the house. So it's a good spot for a powder room to be located, is off of a main traffic area like this. This powder room is fairly close to the kitchen, but it's also separated by a solid wall, and the kitchen is really beyond that on the other side. We'll go back out here and take a look again at our configuration of how this is done, and you'll see there the kitchen is, on the other side of that corridor that we access the powder room. The powder room is tucked away from the main living area. It's tucked away from the dining area too. So that gets us our final plan and the examples of powder rooms. And I can give you some other information on these powder rooms if you would like to have them in a PDF that I can email to you. Just check the description for accessing it and more information on it, and we'll get you something that you can refer to that will help you with designing your powder rooms. If you stuck it out to here, you're becoming a real home design pro. Please like and subscribe so you know when new content is posted. Watch this next episode on storage closets for more home design advice.